Morning, everyone. My name is Virginia Vassilotti, and I am the Schuylkill Action Network Coordinator at the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary. I also want to quickly introduce my colleague, Erica Rossetti, who's the Schuylkill Action Network Associate. Erica, do you quickly want to unmute yourself and turn on your video to say hi?
Hi, everyone. My name is Erica. I'm the Schuylkill Action Network Associate, and we're really excited to have everybody here today for this great event. So we hope you enjoy.
Thanks. And as Erica said, we're really thrilled to welcome you all to the Celebrate the Schuylkill virtual event hosted by the Schuylkill Action Network, or what we refer to as SAN. In previous years, the event was the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund press event and the SAN bus tour. And so, we're a little bummed that we can't all be together in person, but we're really excited to host this event for the first time virtually. And so before we get started, I'll quickly go over some logistics for technology. First, all participants are automatically muted with the video turned off when joining the webinar. So you should only be able to see presenters and moderators' videos during the webinar. Second, if you have any questions during or after the presentations, please use the Q&A feature that's on your bottom toolbar to ask those questions. Erica and I will be moderating the Q&A, and there's time for questions after each of the presentations. And third, the chat is disabled for participants. So we will be sharing various links and resources with attendees in the chat, but attendees cannot chat with one another. And then last, the webinar is being recorded in case you'd like to view it later. So we'll also share all the pre-recorded videos on our YouTube as well. And so what's really great about a virtual event is we can accommodate more people than we would be able to accommodate on our typical bus tours. And so we'd love to learn a little bit more about the audience. So I'll quickly be asking a couple polls. Erica, can you go ahead and administer the first poll for me? So you can see up here, the first question is, how are you engaged with the SAN? And it's multiple choice, so executive steering committee, planning committee, a work group member, attended a SAN event in the past, stay connected via a listserv and social media, or completely new to the SAN. So I'll give folks a couple more seconds. All right, it looks like we have pretty much everyone who had voted, and it looks like about 20% of folks are completely new to the SAN, which is really exciting to, have some new people attend today, and hopefully, you'll stay involved in the future. So we have one more poll. Erica, can you go ahead and administer the second one? Great, thank you. So this second one says, what sector do you represent? Government agency, nonprofit, private entity, water supplier, academia, interested individual, or other? All right, and we pretty much have everyone voted, and I'd say the top two are government agency and nonprofit, but it is exciting just to see the diversity and sectors that are represented here today. And so since we do have a couple new folks here today, we just wanted to quickly explain who we are, the Schuylkill Action Network. So the SAN is a collaborative network of partners working to protect and restore the Schuylkill River Watershed for the ultimate purpose of drinking water protection. And our mission is to improve water resources of the Schuylkill River and its tributaries. The SAN is open for anyone to participate in, whether it's joining a work group, signing up for a listserv, or attending an event. We strive to be inclusive to all and accommodate others' needs. So currently our network consists of environmental nonprofits, local, state, and federal agencies, academia, water suppliers, and interested individuals. You can learn more about the SAN by going to our website, which is schuylkillwaters.org. So today we're here to celebrate the Schuylkill, including all the great work that our partners have done to make the watershed a cleaner, better place. And the Schuylkill River Watershed is an extremely valuable resource for our region. The 2,000 square mile watershed provides drinking water to over 2 million people, most of which are downstream in Philadelphia and some of the surrounding suburbs. The Schuylkill River is 130 miles long and the largest tributary to the Delaware River, meaning what happens in the Schuylkill has a huge impact on the Delaware River and Bay. And a really astonishing fact to me is that the watershed covers parts of 11 counties and 235 individual municipalities. And we also value the watershed for many recreational opportunities, its beautiful landscapes, and the plants and wildlife that call the watershed its home. Here are just a few photos to elevate the beauty of the Schuylkill, most of which come from our previous Schuylkill Shots photo contest. So shown on the screen right now is a high-level overview of the agenda for today's Celebrate the Schuylkill event. We'll start with the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund grant announcements, awarding the 2020 grant recipients. Then we'll showcase a total of 3 projects, including the Porter Floodplain Restoration Project with the adjacent Schuylkill River Trail improvements in Auburn. Then we'll move on to a stream restoration project on the Tulpehocken Creek. And last, we'll showcase a stormwater and infrastructure improvement project along Lafayette Street in Norristown. And as I mentioned, we'll have time for questions after each project showcase, but feel free to type your questions in the chat at any point. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started with our first pre-recorded video, which is the 2020 grant awards for the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund. And this year is really special as it marks the 15th anniversary of the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund, a crucial funding program for sand partners. So Erica, whenever you're ready, please go ahead and share your screen to show the video.
Good morning. My name is Tim Fenchel. I'm with the Schuylkill River Greenways, and thankful that you all are a part of this morning's Schuylkill Action Network virtual tour. One of the things that usually happens this time of year is those of us that are involved in the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund, we put together a project tour, and we go visit one of the projects that was recently completed through the Restoration Fund, and then we also make our grant award announcements for the year. And this year we were really looking forward to doing that, not only because of a great project that was recently completed that we were really looking forward to highlighting, but also because this is the 15th anniversary of the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund, and we were looking forward to doing a little bit of extra celebrating for all the years that that program has been successful and all the partners that have been involved in that. But sadly, because of the global pandemic and the situation that we're all faced with, we're not able to do that. So we are going to be making our award announcements virtually, and they will be a part of the Schuylkill Action Network's virtual tour this morning. But the celebration isn't so much about a project or even about a lot of the work that gets done. It really is about the hard work of a lot of people, a lot of partners, local government agencies, watershed groups, farmers, landowners, all of those people that put their time and effort and energy into really working hard to see these projects complete. Those are the things that we really look forward to celebrating, and I'd like us to celebrate in some way this morning. So I'll be making the announcements here in a couple moments, but first I'd like to just highlight a couple of things from the 15 years that have been accomplished through the Restoration Fund. Over $4 million has been contributed from 7 different funders over these 15 years. Those funds have gone to over 3 dozen grant recipients. Those grant recipients include local government agencies, nonprofit organizations, watershed groups, county conservation districts, groups like that, have all been a part of the amazing work that's been completed. 121 projects have been funded over those 15 years and 90 have been completed to date. The funding that has come into this program has been matched and leveraged by an additional $8 million, and that's a fantastic number that we are just more than happy to share. It's just, like I said, it's a lot of hard work and dedication by dozens and dozens of people and groups. This program has had a tremendous impact on the Schuylkill River and the broader Schuylkill River watershed, but it's also played a really important role in improving farms and farmland practices, preserving thousands of acres of open space, reducing the impact of stormwater, and it's also improved the lives of millions of people who rely on the Schuylkill River as their source of drinking water. I'd like to also thank a couple people. First of all, our advisory committee. The advisory committee to the Restoration Fund is very, very important to my work and the work of the Schuylkill River Greenways. They've been fantastic at guiding and directing this program even before the program came into being. So I'd like to just mention the people that are involved in the Restoration Fund Advisory Committee this past year. Chad Pindar and David Kovach from DRBC, Jordan Rajan from Exelon Corporation, Chris Anderson, Allison Aminto, Will Whalen from the Philadelphia Water Department, Krista Shire from Aqua Pennsylvania, Renee Bryant from the Environmental Protection Agency, Joe Habelka from Pennsylvania DEP, Kate Huddlemeyer from the Partnership for the Delaware Estuary, and Elaine Schaefer from the Schuylkill River Greenways Association. And of course, the program wouldn't be possible without those that are so giving of their funds and who have been funding this program for a number of years. This year's projects were funded by Exelon Corporation, Philadelphia Water Department, and Aqua Pennsylvania. Those three funders really were influential in this program and the success that it's had over the last 15 years. So thank you to those three funders. So without any more delay, the 2020 grant awards from the Restoration Fund. There are two grants going to the Berks County Conservation District. The first to an Irish Creek Stables farm, which is in the Irish Creek Watershed in Center Township, Berks County, for $51,420. The GRUBE farm, which is also in the Irish Creek Watershed in Berks County, for $61,625. There's four grant awards going to Berks Nature. Two of those projects are for land conservation related projects. One is the Adams property, which is 78 acres in Tilden Township, Berks County, and the Olivet Blue Mountain property, 109 acres in Hamburg Borough and Windsor Township in Berks County, both of those for $4,000. Additionally to Berks Nature, the KUNKLE farm in the Maiden Creek Watershed and the GAUKER farm in the Maiden Creek Watershed for $70,000 and $50,000 each. Another grant award is going to Charlestown Playhouse in the Pickering Creek, Chester County, for $50,000. Lower Frederick Township is receiving a grant for $1,650. That's in Montgomery County. And lastly, the Schuylkill Center for Environmental Education Smith Run Stormwater Project, which is located in Philadelphia, for $35,000. So congratulations to each of you and the grant recipients in 2020. We really look forward to seeing your projects completed, and hopefully maybe one day we'll visit them in a future sand tour and Restoration Fund tour. So thanks everybody for joining us this morning. I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the tour this morning and the project site visits. Thanks.
Thanks for sharing that, Erica. And Tim, thanks for going out along the Schuylkill and getting that pre-recorded video. It was nice seeing people floating along the river. Definitely jealous of them right now. And so now we'll hear from just a couple of our funders from the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund. First up, we have Chad Pindar with the Delaware River Basin Commission. And so Chad, please go ahead and share your video and unmute yourself whenever you're ready.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Chad Pindar, and I manage the Water Resource Planning Group at the Delaware River Basin Commission. I'd just like to take this opportunity to say congratulations to all those grant recipients that Tim announced earlier. You guys are doing a lot of important work on the ground, and it's very much appreciated. And I just also like to take the opportunity to say really congratulations to all those recipients over the past 15 years. It's been really great to see a lot of awesome projects try to improve the water resources of the Schuylkill River. And just lastly, many thanks to our contributors, Exelon, Aqua, City of Philadelphia, among others. So continue to keep up the great work, and DRBC is very appreciative of all your efforts. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. And next up, we have Jordan Rajan with Exelon. So Jordan, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and share your video. There you go.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's been a pleasure to work as part of this committee over the past several years. It's one of the great projects I look forward to every year. Looking forward to seeing one of the, I guess, the first projects, my first year being part of the committee, that seeing the progress on that and the completed project. Thank you also to everyone else on the advisory committee. It's a pleasure working with you, and it's been a great learning experience. I've learned a lot, and it's nice to see the improvements over, in the watershed itself. With the quarantine, working from home, I've had a lot of free time, so I've spent a lot of time on the Schuylkill and other, watersheds this year. So it's great to see. Sorry, my dog's trying to get out. It's great to see, the results in action and experience it firsthand. So glad to be a part of it.
Great, thanks, Jordan. And next up, we have Allison Aminta with the Philadelphia Water Department.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's really awesome that we're able to convene virtually today to celebrate another successful year of the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund and highlight some of its projects to help protect and enhance the Schuylkill River watershed. I want to give a special thanks to the Schuylkill River Greenways for their continued administration and support of the grant program. And I also want to extend our gratitude to the Delaware River Basin Commission, the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, EPA Region 3, Exelon, Aqua Pennsylvania, Partnership for the Delaware Estuary, DTE Energy, and Mom's Organic Market for continuing to support our partnership's efforts through the implementation of projects to improve the health of our region's drinking water supply. As some of you may already know, the Philadelphia Water Department supplies drinking water to 1.6 million people every day, and our 2 intakes on the Schuylkill River provide almost half of the city's drinking water. So we believe that the quality of our drinking water is closely linked to the health of our rivers and streams. Because of this, Philadelphia is committed to improving our water supply through regional partnerships with our upstream neighbors. Philadelphia Water Department uses an integrated multi-barrier approach to source water protection with the goal of protecting and improving both the quality and quantity of our rivers to support drinking water, ecology, and recreation. Agriculture and stormwater runoff are the leading contributors of pollution in the Schuylkill River. So when stormwater is impacted by agricultural practices, this can lead to additional treatment challenges for downstream water suppliers like PWD. So the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund is a vital mechanism that makes it possible for Philadelphia to support projects outside of our city boundaries to better address pollution at its source and improve water quality at our intakes. By leveraging public and private resources through environmental projects like those funded through the Restoration Fund, priority projects can be accomplished to better protect the region's drinking water supply and improve our river. So thank you again to our watershed partners and grant recipients who continue to make the Restoration Fund a success.
Thanks, Allison. And last but not least, we have Krista Schreier, who's with Aqua Pennsylvania.
Thanks, Virginia. Good morning, everyone. Aqua Pennsylvania, an essential utilities company, is proud to be a partner on the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund program. We take seriously our mission to protect and provide Earth's most essential resource. And protecting our water supplies is the first step to ensuring clean water for not only our customers, but future generations. While we cannot control the land uses that affect water quality miles upstream of our drinking water intakes, we can take part in implementing projects that prevent and filter pollution before the water ever gets to our treatment plants. And what is even better is that these projects not only improve water quality, they also benefit wildlife, local farmers, schools, and our communities at large. So through the essential foundation, we are able to contribute to such projects that lead to measurable success for the communities we serve. Aqua would like to thank the Schuylkill River Greenways for their continued work in bringing all of these great partners together to collaborate on a healthier watershed for all. Congratulations and best of luck to this year's grantees as they work to complete their projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Krista. And a big thanks to all of our funders of the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund and to Tim and the Schuylkill River Greenways for administering the fund. And I just want to say congratulations to all the recipients for the 2020 SRRF round. And hopefully in the future, we'll be able to see one or more of these projects on a future sand bus tour and Schuylkill River Restoration Fund press event. So we are just a few minutes ahead of schedule. So I do want to allow any time for questions that folks may have. If you have any, again, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom and we can answer those if you have any. So I'll give folks just a minute or so to type any in before we transition into the second part of the virtual tour. All right, well, I'm not seeing any come through today. As you can see in the chat, Erica said if you want to learn more about the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund, you can click the link there, as well as follow up with Tim after today's event. And so with that, we'll go ahead and transition to the virtual project showcase portion of today's event. So we'll be sharing our screen like we did earlier to show some pre-recorded videos of various projects in the Schuylkill River watershed. And we'll also have about 15 minutes after each project to answer any questions. So the first project we'll be showcasing is an incredibly large-scale floodplain restoration and coal silt remediation project up in Auburn, Pennsylvania, which is on the Porter property and what we refer to as the Porter Floodplain Restoration Project. So Erica, whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and share your screen to show that video.
We're at the incredibly beautiful Ken and Jeannie Porter property up here in Schuylkill County, not too far from Auburn, Pennsylvania. And this is the site of the Porter Floodplain Reclamation Project, which was funded by the Schuylkill River Restoration Fund 2 different years, I believe 2018 and 2019. Remember a number of years ago, you said, hey, I've got an idea. I want to do some test borings on this site where I think there might be a lot of coal silt and residual coal sitting around. And well, as usual, turns out you were right. You did your test borings and sure enough there was. So can you just share a little bit of the background of the project and the history of this location, what actually went on here?
Years ago, there was people that actually mined the river to get the coal out. There was over 100 dams on the Schuylkill River from Pottsville to Philadelphia. The idea was that when the coal silt dams up in the coal regions flooded during the big rain events and stuff like that, it washed coal down the river. If the barges somehow sank and they deposited coal in the river, all that material was located in the sediment that helped close the canal at one time. So in that thinking, I knew from my experience on the river that there were a number of places between Schuylkill Haven and Port Clinton where these large coal deposits remain. And the idea with the coal industry going down, if the possibility of getting this coal out wasn't done soon, it's never going to happen. And it's going to stay here forever until it washes into the river. If you get to visit the site, you can see that it actually was an impoundment, what we would call a slush dam. Rightly so, they're called dewatering basins, where when they did their coal processes to clean the coal, back at the time they worked here, they were looking for the larger coal for residential use. But they knew there was some value to the material that they were not able to use back then, and that's why they put it into these dams. And so that material was just stored here for future use if it ever came about. No, it's just the idea that, again, there was a dam here, just upstream. The actual coal processing, even to this day, takes a lot of water. So everything was here. The material was in the river, and they dredged it out and separated the good stuff that they wanted to keep with what they call refuse into these impoundment basins. And so they had plenty of water. The coal material was here. All they had to do was the work. We did test borings to determine both the quality of the material that was here, if there was any carbon content for actual reuse, whether it be for burning in plants, in cogeneration plants, or carbon for filters. And also the borings also told us how much material is supposed to be here. I started visiting this site about 2010. And then I saw the floods in 2011, and it was really bad. So we started a whole number of tours coming here. We started bringing everybody we could in to see what was going on, what was happening to the river, and Kernsville Dam downstream was being full of sediment partially from this area. So we had everybody we could think of in to try to find out where we could move forward with the project. How could we get it done? And everybody would come in, look at it, nod their heads and say, yes, this is bad for the river. It's not good. We need to take care of it. And they'd walk away and forget about it. It wasn't until just a couple years ago, I think it was in the Obama administration, where they came out with what they call the pilot projects. They are administered by the Office of Surface Mining, and the idea behind them is that the monies that go into a community that is distressed because of lack of mining anymore, there's money coming into the community to help boost it while they recover from those loss of jobs and stuff. So the pilot project funding came in here with the idea that we would reclaim this coal silt, get this, remove this abandoned coal from their list of priority projects and stuff. And at the same time, we had to put in an economic hook to show that there was going to be some benefit down the road after the project was finished. There's an abandoned bridge over here that actually cuts off the Schuylkill River Trail, as you know, comes up from Hamburg, from the Kernsville Dam area. It's a beautiful 6-mile trail. Gets up here to the bridge and can't go across the bridge because it needs work. And then we have another section that comes from Auburn Trailhead down to the bridge here. That's about 2 miles long. And again, it gets to the bridge and stops. Part of this project was to, again, remove the silt, but also to restore that bridge, connect those two trails, and have one interconnected trail all the way from Auburn to Port Clinton. I don't know how many people have asked me, when are we going to get it done? We want it done. I can't wait for it to be done so I can bike on it, walk on it, you know, and stuff. So it's going to be fantastic when it's finished. Believe it or not, one of the biggest challenges was trying to negotiate with the township on navigating their roads so that we didn't mess up the roads. We originally thought that there was 90,000 cubic yards of material here. We ended up taking out 123,000 cubic yards. So that entails a lot of truck traffic across the roads and stuff. And the township was probably rightly concerned that we would beat up their roads and they would have to restore them and stuff. So probably the biggest challenge for this particular project. One of the major things that this is going to do is going to be a place for the river to naturally relieve itself at high water events. And that's how this whole project came about. There was a breach in the berm up on the southwestern corner that actually washed a lot of the material down the river. So now the way it's set up and what we have developed here is that water can do that naturally, and it won't wash sediment and eroded material down into the river. That's the big as far as water quality. What we've developed down here now is a big open meadow. We've already seen geese, turkey, deer, great blue heron, ducks. You know, there's an incredible amount of wildlife here already, and it's just got planted. For me, believe it or not, it's a reconnection to my father and his generation, the generation before me. When I grew up as a young fella, the neighbors got together and did all the work around the neighborhood, whether it be shoveling the streets open, to shovel the snow off the streets and stuff like that, to building a playground or whatever. And that generation, I was fortunate to intermingle with them at a young age, and they were into fishing and hunting, and they instilled upon me the beauty of Schuylkill County. To me, I'm hoping that generation's looking down on me, thinking that I'm doing a good job following in their footsteps. And so that's, to me, is my reason for pushing forward on all this work.
Thanks, Erica. And wow, what a great project. We tend to forget how much coal silt is still along the banks of the Schuylkill River. And I remember it was just a year, maybe 2 years ago, I got to actually go out to the site, and it's amazing to see what it looks like now. So great work, Bill, and all of the partners who helped make that project possible. And so now we have a little over 15 minutes for Q&A. So again, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom to ask any questions about the Porter Floodplain Restoration Project that Bill can answer for you. And Bill, if you want to unmute yourself and show your video in the meantime, if there's anything else that you wanted to add while people are chatting into the Q&A box.
The only thing I'd like to add is I'm very grateful to Schuylkill River Restoration Fund for the opportunity to do these projects. as you folks all know, everybody that's on this webinar knows it takes a lot of money to do these things, a lot of cooperation from a lot of people, and you also need the support of all you people to keep us moving forward. So thank you to all.
And we did have two questions that just came through. The first is from Chad, and he asked, do you know what the removed coal silt was ultimately used for?
It's pretty hard to say. The material was taken to Stout Ferry preparation site that's just adjacent to the Auburn desilting basin. And there they separate the material into different parts. Some of it becomes what they call river sand. It's sort of like topsoil, but it's a little more sandy, gravelly product. There's the carbon content. That carbon content can go to a variety of sources, such as charcoal, or I shouldn't say charcoal, carbon filters is one of the biggest ones that we like to use it for. And it can also go to making charcoal briquettes or cogeneration plants. The cogeneration plants, as you might know, are getting less and less volume of material because they're shutting down more and more all the time. So we have to look for these other things. Some of the other places it can go is into making steel. The carbon content in anthracite is used for high quality steel manufacture as well. So. Okay.
Great, and then we have a couple more questions that came in. The next is from Dottie, and she says, where can we access the trails that walk on this area?
The access sites are very common. The one is at the Kernsville Dam. That will lead you the longest portion up to the bridge currently. And then the other site is at the Auburn Trailhead right on 895. Both are really nice sites with ample parking and easy to get to and navigate. I will say the portion at Auburn currently is closed because we are still under construction with the bridge. So we haven't opened that section up yet, but the bottom section from Hamburg up to Auburn is open.
Great, and the next question is from Lisa. She asks, how many years did the project take and is it completed? And you just mentioned it's not completely done yet, but when did you start the project?
We actually started the project about 2 years ago now. It's almost 2 years that we started the floodplain restoration project. Again, that work is finished. It is absolutely complete. You saw some videos. The last photo that you saw there was from August. The difference between August and now is incredible. It just keeps getting better and better as the vegetation grows even more all the time. So the floodplain portion is done. The bridge portion was put out for bid, and I think today, absolutely today, I think it is for sure, they're opening the bids for doing the construction work on the bridge. So that portion, our portion of the bridge work, should be completed next spring sometime, as far as our portion. Now, I think the total bridge work will take longer, probably into the end of next year.
Okay, so you don't
Hopefully.
foresee, see, I see another question up here. It says, when will the bridge be open? So you don't foresee that at least until, I think, 2022?
I would say late next year, hopefully we can get it done, and I'll keep pushing Schuylkill River Greenway to get their portion done. So, I can sit back and push now. I got my work done.
There you go. And another question we have from Chris is, what was the total cost of the project when it's all done?
The pilot project funding was $2.2 million, and we got close to $100,000 from Schuylkill River Restoration on the 2 grants. So it's in the neighborhood of $2.3 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I see a question from Kelly. She asks, what other collaborative A&D remediation projects do you see as priorities for the SRRF and downstream neighbors helping to support in the future?
You only gave me 15 minutes. We have Virginia, you know, we've been working on the Casca slush dam. It's kind of similar to the Porter project. It's not quite on the river. It's on a tributary to the Schuylkill in between Casca and Middleport. That's a huge problem with silt that's been washing into the river since Agnes in 1972. We are currently very active in trying to figure out how to get funding for this and what to do about correcting that problem. And again, that's many, many tons of silt going down into the river. That's one. There's another area just outside of Pottsville that's very similar to the Porter project. I put in for a pilot project grant on that. That was in the neighborhood of $7 million. There's somewhere around 900,000 cubic yards of material that I'd like to remove from the floodplain. There's another similar project outside of the borough of Palo Alto, between Palo Alto and Port Carbon. That would be a fantastic site to do the same thing as Porter, to remove the coal silt. And underneath all that coal silt that's there is the remains of the original first dock area, where the first dock on the Schuylkill Canal existed. And it's our understanding that all of the stonework and everything is still there for the docks. And I would like to see it get all that material out there and reclaim that site to some kind of passive recreation historical site. So those are just a couple.
Yeah,
like I said,
you got a lot on your priority list.
to take a week off and I'll show you all the sites. Yeah.
And I see we have a number of questions that are very similar about, you know, how the area will be maintained as a meadow. You know, are there any risk of invasive plants taking over? Could you talk a little bit about how it will be managed in the future?
Yeah, the site is, I saw a question came through about access and public access. The site is private. It is private property. Poor Ken and Jean Porters they put up with a lot of truck traffic over the last 2 years. They're still going to be having issues with a lot of traffic and business work down there, creating the bridge and stuff like that. So please respect their privacy and stuff. But the actual floodplain site is created as a floodplain meadow, and it will vegetate. We vegetated it with wetland plants and stuff in the shallower wet areas, and the more upland areas we put a different seed mixture in, so it will maintain itself as a natural meadow wildlife area. There won't be any constant maintenance on it. We will expect to see, hopefully, a lot of native plants come in with the trees and stuff that are there. We did already plant in the neighborhood of about 1,500 trees, and they were all native trees. Some of them came from PPL in the program that they had. We had a number of people that social distancing. We still did the planting this summer and planted all those trees by hand. And again, they were native trees to supply either cover or food for the animals and the critters. So, invasive species, yes. If anybody knows the area, stilt grass. Stilt grass is the biggest invasive that we have in the. A lot of people think it's Japanese knotweed, but Japanese knotweed does not compare to stilt grass and the problems that that's going to create. So that area down there is inundated with stilt grass, and we hope our vegetation is robust enough to keep it out.
Great, thanks. And just one last question from Krista. How did you partner with Stout Ferry, and can you talk about what they brought to the project?
Actually, it was Stout Ferry that invited us to the original problem area. There was another site just upstream, closer to Auburn, that the landowner thought he bought black gold when he bought the site, and he saw this coal silt, and he figured that it was black, it was worth money, and he was going to get it. So he invited Stout Ferry down to look at the material and see if there was any value to it. Stout Ferry, through the Bureau of Abandoned Mineland Reclamation and DEP, invited Schuylkill Headwaters along for our suggestions and ideas. That site was not viable to go in and do any work. There was not enough material in there to reclaim or anything like that. But in that effort, the folks at Porter heard about it, and they then contacted Stout Ferry. And again, Stout Ferry brought us all back in to take a look at it. And as soon as we saw it, we knew that something had to be done there. And so that set off a sequence of events where I went and got some funding from DEP 319 grant money to survey an additional 5 sites from Schuylkill Haven to Auburn to the Porter site to identify sites such as this that should be remediated. And Porter naturally came right to the top of the list because of its breach, and that it was actually actively putting sediment into the river at the time.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Bill, for all your hard work and for tuning in today to answer folks' questions. If it's okay with you, we can share your email with the attendees today if they have any additional questions. Does that work?
Sure, and as you folks all know, we put on a lot of tours, so just contact us. We might have to try to group you together, so it's not just one or whatever, but contact me and I'm always available.
Great, thanks so much, Bill. And so we have just about 5 minutes for a quick break, and then we'll reconvene at 10:55 for our next 2 project showcase. So I'll come back on at 10:54 and reconvene the meeting. Thanks, everyone. Showcase a stream restoration project in Berks County and an infrastructure improvement project in Norristown. So first up is the Tulpehocken Creek restoration on the Zartman farm. Erica, would you please go ahead and share your screen to show the video whenever you're ready?
The Tulpehocken Creek is a beautiful stream corridor in southeast Pennsylvania. Beginning in the foothills west of Myerstown, it flows 40 miles east through 27 communities to the city of Reading. There, it drains into the Schuylkill River and eventually the Delaware River and Bay. The Lenni Lenape who lived here recognized the beauty and value of the Tulpehocken, naming it Land of the Turtles. But the past 200 years of settlement and agricultural use on land, along with building mills, dams, and canals on the water, left the Tulpehocken in poor shape. In several sections, there was little vegetation or root structure holding the stream banks in place or providing shade. Because of erosion, the stream was 3 times wider, shallower, and slower than it should be. Sediments, nutrients, and pathogens that ran off of settled lands polluted the water. Aquatic species died off because of a lack of shade, habitat, and oxygen. The stream was not attaining its designated uses of aquatic life and recreation. In 2018, there was a chance to restore a critical stream section on the Zartman Farm property. The Pennsylvania Department of Transportation was able to fund a mitigation project, so many partners set off to improve over 1,000 feet of the Tulpehocken Creek. Through collaboration, these partners repaired a livestock crossing, protected the stream banks, placed boulders to provide habitat and stability, narrowed the stream, improved the stream flow, and even planted a 1-acre forest of 813 native trees and shrubs. As a result of funding, collaboration, and hard work, the Tulpehocken Creek restoration had many benefits for water quality, habitat, and the community. Hundreds of tons of sediment were held in place. Nutrients and other land pollutants were prevented from entering the water. Shade, structures, and vegetation improved habitat. Soon, fish and wildlife from trout to pollinators to birds recolonized the area. The riparian buffer will even provide harvestable fruits and increased land value on the Zartman farm. The Tulpehocken Creek project shows the importance and value of restoring our waters. Healthy water is critical for thriving communities, and none of it is possible without awareness, funding, and partnership.
Thanks, Erica. And wow, what a great video to summarize the benefits of the stream in riparian restoration work on the Zartman farm. And I really like the drone footage. It really puts things into perspective of just, how large scale the project is. And so we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So we have about 15 to 20 minutes for any questions with Kent Himmelwright from Berks County Conservation District. So Kent, if you have anything you want to add while folks are typing in questions, feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thanks Virginia, and thanks Erica too. I don't know if anybody recognized the voice on the narration there, but that was Erica Rossetti. She did a fantastic job on that video. That was a project that was decades in the making. Was first brought to, I would say, a lot of people's attention way back in 2009, 2010, but it wasn't until about 2017 when the site was shown to PennDOT and their engineer AECom and the commission that when we were showing the site to them, they kind of lit up and said, yeah, this is the site that we're going to do. And so planning started from 2018, and then about 2019 we were ready to break ground.
Great. And then one question has come in so far, and the question is, could you expand on what role PennDOT played in this project?
Yeah, also before we start the questions, I think I invited Bill Wybrecht here. I think he's the 717 number. He's calling in.
Okay, I'll allow him to talk. I can't promote him to panelist, but let's see. That's the 717 number.
Yeah.
And then Unmute audio. All right, I think he's on now.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good.
It looks like Don Blow from AECOM is on as well. I'll just say, so it was actually Bill who gave us a call and said that PennDOT was looking for mitigation sites, stream mitigation sites. I-78 is still in the process of expanding, I guess, to 3 lanes. And there was a small stream along I-78 that needed to be relocated with the expanding I-78 highway. So there was some requirements for stream mitigation there, and they were encouraged by PADP to find a site in the same watershed, in the Schuylkill watershed. So I reached out to the conservation district and said, hey, do you guys have any possible mitigation sites? So I showed them actually one that wasn't in the Schuylkill watershed, is in the Little Lehigh watershed. And then we also visited the Zartman site. That was the second site we visited that day. And that site fit what they needed for their stream mitigation.
Great. And so Don and Bill, you're now unmuted and can chime in whenever. I see right now we have one more question that has come in, and it says, can you talk about how the farmers reacted to the project early on and throughout the project?
Yeah, Mr. Zartman was eager to get it done. There was a utility gas line that was exposed and hanging out over the Tulpehocken Creek. When it first eroded out, that was back in 2010. By the time we got to it in 2019, there was about 100 feet of this gas line hanging out over the utility. So Mr. Zartman was more eager than the utility company to get this project done. He's very cooperative. The lower section, we were able to essentially plant, a pretty wide riparian. It's maximum about 50 feet at the moment. And then he's got his porch overlooks the stream, so he has this really nice view shed. So we had to work with him with that. He wasn't too favorable in us eliminating that view shed with trees and shrubs and stuff. So we worked with him to incorporate some multifunctional riparian species. So some areas that he didn't want to be planted in that view shed, we kind of compromised, and we planted some edibles. Like I started going through a list, and I got to elderberries, and he said, yeah, we can do elderberries. And I said blueberries. He lit up. He's like, I really like blueberries. So we planted high bush blueberries and elderberries in some of these areas where his view shed was.
Yeah, I'm sorry, this is Don Blau. Roy was incredibly excited about the project from the first time we met him. We had seen some submissions from years prior to our involvement of this project trying to move forward. Obviously, it was stalled from lack of funding. And between Bill Wybrecht knowing of this area and Jerry Neal at District 5 knowing of very involved with stream mitigation efforts within this county and other counties within District 5. We knew about this site. I think Roy actually had purchased a huge mound of boulders for the in-stream rock structures years ago from, I believe it was a local farmer who was doing some work and did some blasting, and he had the foresight to buy all of those boulders and rock for the stream restoration. I think if Roy was 20 years younger, he'd still be in his 70s, but probably would have tried to do the work himself. He was so anxious to do this. So myself, I mean, Bill Wybrecht's really our guru with the stream mitigation. Myself, I was amazed the first day we walked out there. We literally walked across the stream, you know, without getting our socks wet. That's how much sediment had built up in this area. And Roy now stocks the stream with a variety of different fish. And I think I've seen at least a dozen pictures of folks who worked on it, including Kent and their kids, who were catching these enormous, beautiful fish out there. And it's very scenic. Roy was a great partner. Hoping he's very happy with what's been done out there. And from what we've gathered so far, DEP is very pleased with the mitigation, and it's really been a win-win as we have been able to provide mitigation within the watershed to help a transportation project that was sorely needed for public safety up in the Crumsville area.
Great, and Don, you're kind of talking a little bit about the fish that have come back to the stream. Ken, I'm wondering, was there any water quality monitoring that was done as part of this project?
No, we just have baseline data from years ago. We don't have any follow-up data there. I can tell you that the that section is if you want to catch a trout, go knock on a Roy Zartman's door and ask him for permission to fish that section. My own 4-year-old son caught a trophy rainbow right out of the rock crossvein. The biggest fish I've ever seen come out of a Pennsylvania stream.
Oh, that's awesome.
If fishing is catch and release fishing is a sampling method, it's really well.
All right, and I don't see any other questions coming in right now. So Bill or Don or Ken, I don't know if there's anything else that you wanted to add to this project.
I guess I would like to thank those the folks that we dealt with at DEP. This project is a little different, I think, because of the fact that it is in someone's backyard, and they did bend a little bit with the plantings, as Kent had noted earlier. Probably different plantings than they had preferred, and we're a little more accommodating, knowing that it was, you know, someone's backyard and a very scenic view shed from the back of his home. And they were you know, an excellent partner with the coordination. So it was a pleasure working with DEP, and Kent picked up the construction, did a fabulous job out there. We were blessed with a very good contractor, and it just was a really enjoyable and successful project.
Yeah, I was just we were able to tag on a PACD DCNR multifunctional riparian buffer grant on kind of the back end of this mitigation funds as a, you know, secondary funding source for the project, and that helped us plant. There's you know, almost 800 different plants planted there, 18 different species, and a local landscaper was able to do that too. And it's kind of interesting to be able to incorporate not just native species, but also usable native species that that helps the landowner buy into that riparian buffer. That, oh, I can go get blueberries down there, or he can go take some snippets of red osier, dogwood, or winterberry that we mixed into the plantings and use that for, you know, seasonal decorations. He really caught on to that idea.
Great, and I see Krista asked a question. What is the next priority project for the Tulpehocken?
The the Conservation District right now, we are working on 2 projects on the Kookoosing Creek, which go nicely with American Rivers is working very hard right now to remove the paper mill dam on the Kookoosing Creek, which is right at the confluence of Kookoosing and the lower Tulpehocken below Blue Marsh. Kookoosing Creek is a cold water stream. It stays cold all year. That's really going to benefit the angler industry that is very popular on the lower Tulpehocken. So there's the paper mill dam, and then right upstream from that, we're working on a farm stream restoration project on the Kookoosing, almost within eyesight of the paper mill dam project, and that's 4,000 linear feet of restoration, and that's going to be new riparian as well. We're able to put some livestock exclusion fencing in along the Kookoosing as well. A great project. There's an eagle's nest, there's wild trout, there's cultural resources that we had discovered and are dealing with. There's great blue heron rookeries there. There's 3 sycamore trees there there's probably over 150 great blue heron nests on this property. It's tricky, but it's a great project to protect. And then upstream from there, we're working on a Little Kookoosing Creek restoration with the Partnership for Delaware Estuary, Wilson West Middle School, and Land Studies is our consultant on that project. So we're in the planning phase of that project. That's another restoration on a large segment of the Little Kookoosing Street. So 3 really good projects within the watershed there. So that's our focus for the next 10 years, probably 2 years.
Great, yeah, it sounds like there's definitely a lot going on in the Tulpehocken. And let me just check one second. I think another question came in just to wrap up. This is from Carol. She says, can you provide Ken's contact information? Yeah, we can definitely do that if that's okay with you, Ken.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. All right. And with that, I just want to thank Kent, Dawn, and Bill for joining us to answer some of the questions about the stream restoration project. It's a really great project to, see the drone footage from year to year and how it's really, improved the stream itself on the Zartman property. So thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, and with that, we'll transition into our last project, which is the Lafayette Street road improvements in downtown Norristown. And I'm sure you're all wondering, why we're highlighting a road improvement project, but as you'll see, this project has many aspects beyond just a standard infrastructure project. There's many community and environmental benefits that are tied in with it. So Erica, whenever you're ready, please go ahead and share your screen to start the video.
Located along the Schuylkill River, Norristown, Pennsylvania has a history of economic prosperity. At one point, the only road connecting Reading and Philadelphia went straight through Norristown, along with many railroad lines. But as more and more highways were built, Norristown became disconnected from the region. In the early 2000s, the Lafayette Street Extension Project envisioned reinvigorating and reconnecting the area. This project would improve access to downtown Norristown and Plymouth Township by connecting Lafayette Street to the Pennsylvania Turnpike. The $90 million project is led by Montgomery County Planning Commission in collaboration with many other partners. But this project is much more than just an economic and transportation project. It also incorporates recreational and environmental improvements. Along Lafayette Street now runs a section of the Schuylkill River Trail, connecting to the Chester Valley Trail and Norristown Transportation Center. Bioretention basins and native plants were installed along the side of Lafayette Street to capture and infiltrate stormwater runoff flowing from surrounding streets. Prior to this improvement project, stormwater would run directly into the Schuylkill River. Now, water is well managed and thousands of visitors frequent the beautiful open space.
People live here, people work here, people travel here, people recreate here. So it has to be a little different model. So it's a little more formal, but at the same time, it's all native plants. There's lots of open green space. So I think it's a good medium approach between just a strictly turn it all back to nature and let nature, Mother Nature, like do what she does best, or making everything concrete and putting it all in a big, concrete hole. I think this is a really good approach for urban areas where people are starving for some green space. But where do you put it?
A unique part of this project was to retrofit the Sawmill Creek, a stream that was piped and channelized in concrete when the Pennsylvania Railroad first built rail lines through Norristown. Although the Sawmill Creek could not be restored to its original state, several structures were installed to mimic a natural stream channel's habitat.
Bioretention areas. These are all listed in here, and you can see the water comes across underneath. Lafayette Street all feeds into all these bioretention areas. Here's the Sawmill Run. So this is what we replaced, and it goes on out to the Schuylkill River that way.
The biggest issue was really controlling the water. So in the plan, they called out for this diversion, and every time we tried to put it in, it was always blowing out, and we had to add pumps, and we had to pump out our area. And I swear we got like a couple 2-year, 3 to 5 year storms during the time, and it was a mess. So we had a ton of cleanup all the time. So we were re-cleaning the things that we already did, and a lot of rework as far as that goes. And that was really interesting going through that. And then we had to bring in this enormous crane just because we had to get underneath the wires. So the crane had to be boomed out a lot more than we would necessarily want it to. But those high transmission lines that are going over top of it really made it a lot more difficult.
After overcoming many challenges, the Lafayette Street project will be completed by the end of 2020, and additional transportation construction projects are still to come. The Lafayette Street Extension Project is a great example of how redevelopment can incorporate environmental restoration and stormwater management goals. When we improve infrastructure, environment, and outdoor access, we improve our local communities. Montgomery County is committed to continuing to make infrastructure improvements that provide win-win outcomes for the community and the environment.
Thanks, Erica. And now we have time for questions with Crystal Gilchrist, who is with Montgomery County Planning Commission. Hey, Crystal, is there anything that you wanted to add while we're waiting for questions to come in?
Yeah, I would just note that in the area that we were working, we had so many utilities to coordinate with and work through, and there's mains, sewer mains, water mains, major electrical transmission lines. All of this had to be coordinated so that we could do the road work for one thing, but also establish this linear park in Norristown that incorporates all those bioretention areas. There's a SEPTA line, there's a Norfolk Southern line. It was really a complicated project for a small little section of roadway. And I think you got that impression from the representative from Myers, Jake, when he talked about bringing in that large crane. It was an exciting project to watch happen, mostly because of all the complicated utility issues that were there. But it's now done, it's completed, and we're expecting a virtual ribbon cutting here by the end of the year. But we are very pleased with the project overall, the whole 3 sections of it that took about 8 years to complete overall.
Wow. Yeah, I know when Erica and I went out to meet with you back in August, I mean, it was just amazing to see the scale of the project and then hear, all the challenges with, as you're mentioning, the utilities and sawmill restoration work. It's just an amazing project. And I see one question came in from Krista. What new businesses or economic development do you see coming to the area?
That's a very interesting question, Krista. Thank you. Currently, there are a lot of residential properties along Lafayette Street in the section that was shown in the video. The other two sections of Lafayette Street included a completely new a new roadway constructed on virgin ground. That did lead to a new Wawa. Every community needs a new Wawa. So a large, mega scale Wawa came in as a result of part of that project, and we had to work with them in terms of getting them access and coordinating with all that utility work too. So that was the first thing that happened, but we're starting to see some of the residential property values increase along that area. If you saw in the video close to the beginning, there was a major old Pennsylvania Railroad viaduct that ran along the railroad in this section. It was long abandoned. The Schuylkill River Trail used it in part for some time. We had to relocate the Schuylkill River Trail too as part of this project. But the viaduct completely cut off that part of town from any other businesses. Most of the businesses along the river in that section between the railroad and the river are heavy industry. There's a sewage treatment plant and some other, trucking type industries. But this opens up the vista. It opens up the area. It provides a linear park with direct access for those properties that are on the north side of Lafayette Street. So it's going to take a while till we see the economics follow along, and certainly the pandemic hasn't helped that a whole lot. But we're definitely seeing a whole different approach to how people are tending their properties in that area. There's less trash, there's less, stuff accumulating on sidewalks. The residences now have a nice wide 10-foot sidewalk in front of their home instead of a skinny little broken down 3-foot sidewalk. It has really changed the character of that area of Norristown, and relieved, now that it's all open, it relieved a lot of the traffic pressure on the main street in Norristown, which was part of the objective. So now that Main Street is not so congested, people can walk more, the businesses can have better pedestrian access, and those types of things. So it should have a large scale long-term impact, but it's not going to happen overnight.
Great, and there isn't a question coming in right now, but I have one for you about the bioretentions. So what is the community's reception towards them? Like, are they accepting of these new bioretentions? Do they even know what they are?
Yeah, I think most of the neighbors don't really understand. They've heard the term rain garden, I think, a lot of times, but they haven't really experienced what that truly is. I think one of the biggest challenges with these types of naturalized basins, whether it's a standard basin or an infiltration basin, is long-term maintenance. You go to a lot of trouble to find the right plants and put the right plants in these areas, and then, as Bill said earlier, things like the stilt grass and other invasives kind of blow in and take over. The county will maintain a good bit of that linear park, and then some of it will also have to be maintained by the local municipalities, which is Norristown Borough, and the other section is Plymouth Township. So that's going to be the biggest challenge, to make sure that we can maintain those natural areas with the plants that were intended to be there, and not so much of the other junk that blows in. But we haven't gotten any pushback from that at all. There used to be, more flooding along Lafayette Street because of this giant railroad viaduct that kind of was a giant dam. We've since had a couple major storms go through since the viaduct was gone and the stormwater infrastructure was in place, and it seems to be working fine. That last big hurricane that came through, fortunately, we had things locked up pretty good by the time that happened, so we didn't have a lot of damage, but it worked just like it was supposed to work.
Oh, good. Well, that's great to hear. And then Crystal, you mentioned briefly about the Schuylkill River Trail having to be relocated. So have you seen a lot more people recreating on the trail, you know, biking, hiking, walking?
That was always a very busy section of the trail from the very beginning. And when we started the project, the first new construction part of the project also had to do some trail work. And we were told pretty early on, you cannot close the trail. You cannot close the trail. We must maintain trail access at all times. So that required us to do some trail building before we shut down the old part of the trail and really coordinate when we had those closures at night and over the winter time when there's less traffic. That is a very busy part of the trail, and hopefully now that it's more open, we'll start to see more businesses kind of pop up along that area that can take advantage of that trail traffic. The one thing that the freight station was kind of shown in the video a little bit, but it wasn't called out. That's the area where the Chester Valley Trail and the Norristown and the Schuylkill River Trail will eventually meet. The county hasn't decided exactly what we want to do with that structure, but it will be a trailhead of some sort in the future. So that also could generate a lot of activity in the area going forward.
Great. I see there might be one more question. Someone raised their hand, so we'll give them a second to type their question in the Q&A box. And then let's see if there's anything else. You know, is there anything else, Crystal, that you wanted to share about this project, the process, any of the benefits?
Yeah, I think the one thing to keep in mind with all these projects, especially when you're doing a big infrastructure project, is the time it takes to get to the point where you can put a shovel in the ground. The Lafayette Street Extension Project began in the early 2000s as somebody's idea. Until you can, you know, garner enough support and move the plan forward and find funding and work through all those details, it takes time. And you need a committed group of people who will keep moving it forward throughout that period of time. I noticed that you've posted my Montgomery County email address for further questions. And I got to tell you, tomorrow is my last day before I retire. So that email address is only going to be good for another day. But there is a website. Montgomery County does have a website for the Lafayette Street Project. You can go there and find out who to contact and find out more information about that.
Great. And yeah, Erica did put that in the chat. And also congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you.
And then real quick before we wrap up, you were talking about funding and just how much this project costs. So could you talk a little bit about how you pulled together all the funding to make it happen?
Yeah. A lot of it is PennDOT funding through the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. We had to break the project down into smaller pieces so that we could acquire the funding. There's a lot of federal funding in this, and that of course meant that we had to work through the Regional Transportation Improvement Program to get those projects on that list for the funding. So that's another thing that takes a lot of time. There was some local commitment. The county certainly put up some money, but a lot of it was federal money that came through PennDOT, which also initiates a lot of those remediation issues that if you're doing something on private property, maybe you don't have the same types of remediation that's required, but once PennDOT gets involved, you are going to remediate to the highest level possible.
Mm-hmm. Great. Well, thanks, Crystal. I don't see any other questions coming in. So with that, if there's anything last minute things you wanted to share about the project, please go ahead.
I invite everyone to come out and take a bike ride on the Schuylkill River Trail and stop and take a look around. There's an old railroad crane that we were able to rehab as part of the project. There's a lot of green space where you can stop and have a picnic and enjoy the scenery. It's a lovely amenity, a good addition to Norristown Borough, and we are anxious to see the benefits of that in the coming years.
Great. And then as I said that, of course, one final question came in, so we'll answer that real quick before we wrap up. And the question is, do you see any engagement of community volunteers in the future to help maintain the gardens or clean up litter? And have any of the neighboring residents express pride in the improvements?
That is certainly a big issue on the residential side of the street where we have the 10-foot wide sidewalk. There are also some little mini sections of vegetation planned around utility poles and those types of things. We have had the Norristown Gardening Club contact us about how they can help out, and that's probably a good place for them because the scale is about right for a group that size. Most of the bioretention areas are going to require a contracted type of maintenance, I think, going forward, or substantial effort from Montgomery County's Public Works Department. So it is a big part of the project. You can't just put it in and walk away. Maintenance is critical.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. That's what we hear from, all of our partners throughout the watershed. It's great to actually implement a project, but if it's not maintained in the long term, what's the point of investing in the first place? So it's great to see that you are building up some of that community support for the project.
Yeah, it should be great.
All right, and with that, I don't see any more questions. So thanks again, Crystal, for joining in and answering some of the questions on this project, and congratulations again on your retirement. That's exciting. And with that, I just want to thank all of our guest speakers here today who, helped to implement these great projects throughout the watershed. Tim, Bill, Kent, Crystal, and the additional speakers for the Restoration Fund. We really appreciate everything that you do to protect the Schuylkill River and its tributaries. And I wanted to give a special shout out to Erica for all of her hard work editing all these videos we shared today. And I saw a couple of people asked in the Q&A or chat if the videos will be available. And the answer to that is yes, they will be available on our YouTube website, and we will send a follow-up email to all the attendees here today so you can access those videos as well as the recording here today. And so with that, we really enjoyed celebrating all the great work that our partners have done in the Schuylkill River this year. And hopefully next year we'll be able to meet in person for our annual bus tour and Schuylkill River Restoration Fund press event. And so after the webinar ends today, you'll see a link to fill out a survey. We'd really appreciate your feedback, as it's the first time we've ever done this event virtually. And we'll also, as I mentioned, be sending the links and resources afterwards. So with that, thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. And I'm just going to share Erica and my contact information with you all today so you can see that on the screen. Thanks again. Bye.